When I put the costume on me, it changes me and helps me to become the king.
There is so much detail that goes into it, down to the last bit of lace on a dress.
Our team spends hundreds of hours making sure that every detail on screen is authentic.
As soon as you put the costume on and you see 50 extras dressed as individual little French costumes, it makes all the difference in the world.
The costumes this season are just absolutely incredible.
Outlander is a very, very, very ambitious, enormous undertaking, and that represents an enormous challenge for us in the costume department. It's a challenge, it also makes it very exciting. Never a dull moment on our show.
Make a proper French courtier out of you yet.
Since I was about 5 years old, I've been in love with the 18th century. It's one of the most beautiful periods of fashion. It's just stunning, and it's sexy, and it gets revisited on the runways year after year, decade after decade.
It's such a visual, dramatic difference to last season. We get to France and there's sumptuous silks and satins.
Before we did anything else, Gary and I worked on a color palette. In season one of the things we really, really learned was about shooting in candlelight and how we wanted to deal with that so that people didn't vanish into the darkness. So we designed a palette that was very rich and very, very, very vibrant.
Terry's always telling me that we don't show enough of the costumes. We don't have enough wide shots, you don't see them head to toe, to which I always defend what we're doing. And then ultimately, I think it looks fantastic.
Terry's designs are incredible. You see them on the page and then they come to life and they look exactly how they did on the page. It's really amazing.
Everything from the 18th century is done in our workshop. Shoes, hats, petticoats, gowns, suits. An average man's suit of the 18th century has about 50 or 60 buttons. And we bought buttons everywhere we possibly could and still ran out. So we started making embroidered buttons. We had to learn how to make fans. There's no real book that tells you how to do that. So suddenly my team was making fans, decorating hats, or making gloves. You know, there's no store that's selling 18th century gloves. All the dresses have incredibly ornate trims on them. For weeks, my team was doing nothing but making thousands of yards of trim.
This is the authentic dresses as in the 18th century.
Slightly uncomfortable, but worth it because they look amazing.
I make you an appointment with Madame Tabanou. She'll make you a dress fit for a queen.
In season 2, what I didn't anticipate when I read the books that we ended up doing that was really fascinating was Claire's the one who's in the dressing room, and she's picking out her clothes and she's designing them. And so then for the first time I was finding her voice and finding what she would want. We ended up really using the 1940s as our blueprint and started looking at fashion designers of those periods.
We see a very subtle difference between how Claire dresses and how all the other characters dress, and I loved that. I just thought it was so smart and such a beautiful visual as well.
Terry has a great vision, and I think that's probably where most of the budget goes, on Claire's wardrobe.
I see we're all ready to go.
From day one on this show, fans have said, what about the red dress? What about the red dress? I get sent pictures of red dresses. I'm asked about it. If the dress is maroon, I'm asked, is that the red dress? If it's slightly pink, is that the red dress? It was an important garment. It's a tricky garment. It's very powerful. It's very overwhelming. You don't see a lot of red on film, and that's for a reason, because it just takes over the entire scene. Fortunately, that is the goal of the red dress on our show, is to take over the scene. Again, I looked to the 1940s. I didn't want something that was overly decorated. I wanted something that felt a little bit out of place. And the description in the book describes the dress doing something that an 18th century dress actually could not do.
You can see every inch of you, right into your third rib.
No, you can't. And it's funny because it's so against her character in some ways, but I loved that because I felt like she never had the chance before, so she almost overshot her own sort of idea of what she would wear, and it's great. I think it worked so perfectly.
I told you that dress would bring us grief.
Having a favorite, I have a few. One that we call the Dior, which is it's just so chic and so elegant.
Our homage to Christian Dior, our beautiful bar suit that defines the season.
There's also one that we call the Dressage. It's just this incredible fabric that it was like a heavy linen or something and embroidered all over. It's just stunning. difficult to move around in, but for the visuals alone, it was worth any discomforts.
Terry kind of goes off and does her own thing. I was there when she picked out the fabric she used in that costume. She asked them, is there anything in the basement that no one else has seen? And they brought up this bolt of fabric. She immediately, I could just see her go, wow, I'm going to make something great out of that. And then it became this beautiful, amazing outfit.
When you're dressing Katrina Balfe, you know, you don't have to do a lot of, you know, embellishment. She kind of decorates everything we put on her.
Civilized. Very civilized.
Jamie's costumes this season are very different. I was slightly concerned about doing the season as I imagined in my head all these fancy frills and French over-the-top costumes.
But we knew we didn't want Sam to be decked out in the kind of crazy stuff that we had the Parisian men in, and it was important to hold on to the heroic Jamie. I looked at what is the most iconic, beautiful way to dress a man, and it's the same as it is today. A black suit and a white shirt, every man looks good in that. So that was sort of our jumping off point for him. We kept him very clean, very heroic.
His costumes reflect his mood, you know, it's black and covered up and injured, I think, as well. Jamie wears this almost like a gauntlet. It's leather to hide his scars while they're healing and also to hold them in place. And it's a strange characteristic because it certainly affected me. And like Terry's costumes always do, the physicality always affects the actor. Well, I wanted to carry on into when Jamie's not wearing the gauntlet, that he's always still got his stiff fingers, that he carries his hand in a certain way, and I find I do it in real life now as well, which is quite strange. I love the kilt, to be honest. It's just so much more free and easy, and it feels more Jamie, to be totally honest. I don't feel in Paris that that is Jamie. I think when he's most himself naturally is when he's, you know, in the Highlands.
Where are we going?
To witness the dressing of the king, you foolish man.
Oh, I wouldn't want to miss that.
King, yeah, have many costume, and for example, this one, yeah, gold.
We all love the days that King Louis was on set. He's like a peacock, all the colors in the rainbow, that just announced his presence in the room.
And I have another with a big, big coat with the fleur de lis. It's amazing, so heavy, but it really helps to play. It takes me 1 hour to getting the costume and the makeup to become the king.
Puis-je présenter à Votre Majesté Jonathan Wolverton Randall.
Terry, the costume designer, has been a huge ingredient in, certainly for me, playing two different people. It's helped me immensely. Jack Randall stuff feels more structured and with the boots and everything, so it does make me sort of stand differently. Whereas the Frank stuff is a little more comfortable, you know, a little more modern. Those sort of things do feed into the work that I then do.
His Royal Highness, Prince Charles Edward Stuart.
Surprisingly, I thought when I was trying on all these outfits, and I happened to have a different outfit every time, wow, it's kind of relatively easy. I can put the underlayers on myself, and then I just need a hand with this, this tricky beast. I'm quite a fan of the cane. The end of the cane is quite shiny. That's quite fun. And then the wig, that probably takes about an hour.
Every occasion had its wig. They had a wig for riding, a wig for sitting in a carriage, a wig for going to a dance, a wig for having dinner. A nobleman would have 3 wig changes a day, and new wigs being made all the time. So a lot of wigs to be found and dressed and provided and fitted.
Now the wigs are very light and the costumes are actually very enjoyable to wear.
Le Comte et la Comtesse Saint-Germain.
Walking around in my suit all day and I never ever felt uncomfortable, so it's quite rare. It's a little bit heavy indeed, I mean the old suit, but it helps you to get in character.
Physically the most challenging, I think, is wearing a dress that's 4 foot too wide and you can't really walk anywhere unless you walk sideways.
There's a collaboration of scale that happens all the time. Gary's designing 18th century sets. That was the one place that women could actually walk through because the doors were designed to accommodate those costumes. Things like dining tables were a different ball game because they're thinking in modern terms. So you do a dining room scene with everybody sitting around the table, and I kept saying you can't get that many chairs at a table because the women take up 5 feet of space. And everybody was like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? You had to do a rehearsal where we dressed up all of our extras in costume and rehearsed them through the dining dining room so everybody could kind of go, oh, it's how you set up a scene, because when people are whispering over and speaking to each other, you've got to get across 4 feet of costume to do that.
Dante.
Terry is very collaborative. She really understands that it's another tool for the actor. They need to complement the actor.
Here I am wearing this really cool looking suit, facing you and those cameras, when there is so many people behind that have been working on it so I could feel comfortable, so I could act. And I want to thank them for that, because that's a hell of a work.
I know Terry works from a point of view that says each design is about a character. It's delivering an idea. It's a storytelling device.
Terry was sort of given license to go for broke, and she did it. They're just so beautiful. I mean, she's incredible at what she does.
I refuse to be hanged in this rig-out.
Then let me get you undressed right away.